That was a wake-up call. Good morning, members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Good morning. Welcome to the continuation of Central Committee meeting number 5 of today, Tuesday, November 1st, 2022. I would like to give a special welcome to the Minister of Finance, Mr. Artwell Irian, and his support staff. We have established a quorum of 8 members. At this time, I invite you to please stand for a brief moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from 2 members, MP Melissa Gums and MP Solange Duncan. At this point, we open the floor for notifications. Are there any notifications? MP George Pantaflet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to the Chair, Honorable Khifir, of course, our Minister of Finance and his support staff, my colleagues in Parliament, and those who are viewing. Mr. Chairman, this is really a bit difficult for me, but I still have to say it, and it has to do with an article that appeared in the Daily Herald of, I think, yesterday, Monday, where GEB explains that out of the 50% of the persons, only 50% of persons who have the original bill have not complied with their payments. In other words, they receive the accurate bills and only 50% have complied, which means the others have not paid their bill. And that is unfortunate, Mr. Chairman, because the fact is, what one has to understand, if you don't pay your bill, it means GB can't meet their commitments. If GB can't meet their commitments, Mr. Chairman, it means that they can't even pay the employees either. That is possible. We have heard rumors in the past where, because of the financial situation, employees might have been laid off and so on. Rumors are not, Mr. Chairman. I think those things are serious. I want to urge persons to please do the utmost in order to do so, because it means that GB will find itself in a very precarious financial situation, as we all, I think, heard in a meeting we had, I think, last week or a couple of weeks ago, where this creditor is asking for funds up in advance, which means that there's no trust there. Another matter, Mr. Chairman, why I mentioned this is the issue of the pension relief that GB gave to pensioners. Basically, if GB is not making money, which means it cannot give any relief to the pensioners. So that's another matter I believe we should look into. So, Mr. Chairman, on another note, I believe that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And of course, we know how it is where, unfortunately, all over the world, and St. Martin is no exception, where domestic violence takes place. I think it's a very unfortunate phenomenon. And worrying is also the fact that it is also, mostly when you hear about domestic violence, you look mostly at the fact that it is perpetrated by men. But unfortunately, we see an increase where women are also being the perpetrators. So I believe that we as a people, not only here in St. Martin, the region, have a very serious role to play as it regards to the issue of domestic violence, and that institutions who are involved in trying to mentor these persons or assist these persons in order to deal with the root cause of what happens or what makes that a behavior pattern that is taking place and increasing. That is important that we find a way to deal with it, because if not, Mr. Chairman, we'll find ourselves in a community where you have even our children who grow up in this environment become also perpetrators of this thing, and then we do not want that to take place. So, Mr. Chairman, having said that, I thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Pantaflet. We now give the floor to MP Christophe Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to you, our Khifir, our Minister of Finance and his support staff, my honorable colleagues, the people of St. Martin, good morning. Mr. Chairman, now that all the dust have settled, we have a new governor, we have a new chair. What I've noticed, Mr. Chairman, is that we here in Parliament haven't seen the new coalition agreement. So I'm asking if the governor have received the new coalition agreement. I don't know, I'm asking. If that is the case, I would also like that to be presented to the members of Parliament too as well. Mr. Chairman, the new coalition agreement, which I've noticed, I haven't seen as yet, have been asked for, but it hasn't come to Parliament as yet. I'm asking for that to be sent to Parliament. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Emmanuel. As for there being a new chair, there is no new chair as yet. I'm filling in as the first vice chair. There is no new chair, as you yourself would know. The next speaker, MP Heiliger Martin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning to the Griffier. Good morning to the Minister and his support staff. And good morning to those viewing and listening online and on the radio. Mr. Chairman, if my information serves me right, since the last, I think, was in June of this year, we've had 2 COVID-19 related deaths just over last month in October, making this a total of 89 COVID-related deaths thus far. My thoughts and prayers goes out to their families that are now in bereavement, and may their soul forever rest in peace. Mr. Chairman, there's a serious flu going around right now, and I would like to implore the community of St. Martin to take the standard preventative measures, standard stuff that we've been listening over and over and over. Avoid those that are sick, cover your mouth, wash your hands. I keep doing that, and sanitize. Not because we're in an endemic phase, we should be lax. COVID is still out there. COVID is still killing people, so let's all be vigilant. While on the topic of COVID, Mr. Chairman, noteworthy to mention is that as of today, November 1st, 2022, travelers are no longer required to fill out the EHAS form. Just yesterday, I called an EHAS rep to confirm if a friend of mine, just to confirm if indeed the EHAS is completely eliminated. And to my surprise, this EHAS rep responded by saying that her and her 2 fellow colleagues, effective immediately, resigned yesterday, coincidentally. This person is my go-to person when it comes to EHAS, and to me, she formed an integral part of EHAS. She built that project from scratch. I mean, she owned it. And to hear that she resigned, it's a bit alarming for me. And she received a request stating that she needs to not only cut down on staff, but also cut down on hours until March 15, 2023. Mr. Chairman, there's a lot of speculations around this EHAS matter. And during the press briefing, the minister himself played a voice note where the worker of EHAS stated that, yes, indeed, we do understand that it was very short and we were supposed to be consultants. But when you look at the agreement, there's nothing clearly stating that there's a consultant signing with government. So the statement does not correlate with the agreement, Mr. Chairman. In addition, 2 workers, from what I've heard, are already lawyered up. Obviously, lawyer sees that there's a case there. So with that, Mr. Chairman, it's impossible a Minister of Labor is unaware of his labor laws. I'll be requesting an urgent question hour for Monday, November 7th, to be called, and with, of course, the presence of the Minister to help us get a better understanding of what exactly is taking place with the soon-to-be rescinded EHAS program. And while on the topic with the presence of the Minister, Mr. Chairman, I'm looking forward to next week. Next week's meeting week being a meeting week jam-packed with convocations, hopefully at least 10 out of the 30 that are there, still pending, and looking forward to seeing the presence of the Minister of ASR at least once or twice a week in the next 3.5 weeks. With that, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Just on notice, I received a message that the volume on the stream is a little low. Just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a Good morning to you, of course. A good morning to my colleagues and the minister and his support staff who are here this morning. A good morning to all tuned into this meeting. Mr. Chairman, I started out at the beginning of this meeting, in which we are debating, if I can call it that, the amended budget 2022. And I started out by asking the minister to inform us as to the state of this government, the basis for his government, the one who, or the ones who are presenting this amended draft budget. Mr. Chairman, I would be pleasantly surprised, but I don't expect it, if the Minister of Finance would go into answering that question today, because it is unbelievable, to say the least, that the government ministers, in this case the Minister of Finance, comes to this hall of Parliament, presents an amended budget 2022. Since the budget was passed many months ago, and what happened and what people need to understand is that the government since then has been acting outside of the budget that was approved. That's why we have an amended budget before us today. Yet, no minister, from Prime Minister right down, thinks it is right and decent to inform Parliament and the people of St. Martin where this government stands in terms of its status. What kind of government do we have? Is it a minority government, a majority one, a tolerated one? What kind of government do we have? As if that is not enough, Mr. Chairman, one of my colleagues earlier made reference to the similar situation, which would be, if there exists such a thing for this government now and its support in Parliament, a coalition agreement, coalition accord, and then the issue regarding the chairperson, the chairmanship of Parliament comes up. And then we were told, which is obvious, that no new chair has yet been appointed. That too, Mr. Chairman, that too is a slap in the face of the Parliament of St. Martin and the people. As if what happens in here and how they do is of no concern to anyone. So we rush it to dismiss the chair that was there. But now are we going to appoint a chair? No, we're going to see a rotating and between the first and second vice chairs, and nobody involved in this thinks it is right. And again, I got to use the word decent to inform the Parliament what's going on. What's going on? Mr. Chairman, I hope, but maybe the minister could put me in a better frame of mind as far as his amended budget is concerned by really and truly addressing the first question I asked, and that is the state/status of the current government of St. Martin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. We have no other speakers. I want to thank all of those who have made notifications. And we go over to the agenda for today. We have as agenda point for this meeting, agenda point 2, Ontwerp van Landsverordening tot wijziging van de Landsverordening begroting 2022. Landsverordening begrotingswijziging 2022 ingekomen stuk 104/jaar 2022-2023, de dato 21 oktober 2022. The draft national ordinance amending the national the budget of 2022, National Ordinance Budget Amendment of the year 2022. It is good to note that this meeting is a continuation of the meeting which started on October 28, 2022, during which Agenda Point 1 was closed and Agenda Point 2 was adjourned. So now we go over to Agenda Point 2. Parliament received the draft National Ordinance Amendment Budget 2022 on October 21st of this year, 2022. As mentioned, this meeting was convened on Friday, October 28th, during which, at the handling of this agenda point, the Minister of Finance gave a general introduction on the draft National Ordinance and Amendment Budget 2022, and members of Parliament were given the opportunity to pose questions to the Honourable Minister. The meeting was then adjourned to allow the Minister time to prepare the answers to the questions posed by members of Parliament. Today, the Minister of Finance has returned to Parliament to provide answers to the questions posed by members of Parliament. So at this time, I give the floor to the Minister of Finance, the Honourable Mr. Artwell Arian, to answer the questions posed by members of Parliament. Minister Arian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you. Good morning to the Griffier. Good morning to the honourable members of Parliament. And good morning to the viewers and the people of St. Martin. Mr. Chairman, I'll go directly into answering the questions. I'll start first with the questions posed by MP Sarah Scott Williams. Her first question was in regards to the government acted on the approved budget 2022 or an informal amended budget. Given the ordinance, we had to stay within the borders of the 2021 budget. This seems burdensome, but the fact is that more than 90% of the budget contains fixed costs, given just a fractional freedom in policy adjustments. Answer number 2, indeed we used budget 2022 as a basis for the budget 2023, but we used more resources such as the real figures as presented in our quarterly reports, and we will also take up the advice from the CFT into consideration. In regards to your third question, in regards to the coalition agreement and so forth, we didn't get a final answer from the Prime Minister as yet, but I understood that is being worked on, so hopefully before the end of this meeting. Your fourth question was in regards to a document on June 30th that has not been provided as yet either. In regards to your fifth question, the Parliament salary post, was this increase and what was the basis for this? Because of the increase of the independent MPs, the support needed to be increased by 2 persons. These 2 people are added to the budget of Parliament. In addition to that, we also had an additional, Parliament also requested for us to take into consideration that we now have an additional member of Parliament with the suspension of MP Bonkamper. The goods and services were cut by 50%. This was proposed by Parliament for the amount budgeted and approved by 2022. The other question, the adjustments were made for Parliament, were submitted by Parliament. The next question was in regards to the matter of disaster management and the calamity funds with RUMI. A lot of these funds fall under general affairs, which you mentioned. The government was advised by the CFT at a mayor to reduce the approved budget by an amount of 40 million guilders. Luckily this season, we did not have any disasters like a hurricane and so forth, so cutting the budget for calamities was a low-hanging fruit. The next question was in regards to facility affairs. The Department of Facility Services was diligent in its attempt to decrease the expenditures, and in doing so, a lesser amount was spent. Seeing such, it was recommended to decrease the budget. The next question was in regards to SMDF and the recently received annual report. And MP asked to give some perspective on the organization. The annual account for 2021 was not received as yet. The last annual account we had from SMDF was the 2020 annual account. St. Martin Development Fund is a foundation in which is funded by government and which distributes these funds to various NGOs within the community. It also focuses on topics such as the elderly and the youth. During the pandemic, SMDF assisted the government by executing both the SRP program for income and employment and for the food program. In addition, SMDF also collaborates with government on the Learn Smart program, which provides free online courses. And the last update we had for 2022 showed 485 unique learners and 632 verified courses completed. Next question was in regards to the fleet, the car fleet. The vehicle fleet has been expanded in 2022 with cars granted by the trust fund. These cars were made available for departments that deliver services to the public. Your next question was regarding to consultancy and ICT. This answer is still being worked on by the Ministry of General Affairs. Next question was in regards to the government Dale naming minister and the reporting institutions. The MP asks on the status of EDC, the concession for GB, and also has the harbor been received or is it expected? I'm assuming that was the annual accounts. We have seen a general improvement of reporting by the government institutions over the year, which was also stated by the auditors of government. The harbor has been paying their concession for the year 2020 on a monthly 2022, on a monthly basis. The concession for GB is to be offset with a government payable balance to GB for electricity and water. EDC financials for the year up to 2021 have been audited this year. Now the government has the financials are up to date. It is essential that the entities that were up to date remain, and those are not catch up to government, and we are focusing on this. The next question was in regards to a meeting held with the semi-public institutions. The government kept the 10% of the subsidy to 2.5% cut. MP, if you could just give me a nod, we assume this is related to the schools subsidies? Okay. So I'll state, then for accuracy purposes, the 10% was not held back from any school board, as was previously mentioned already. The 10% has not been held back and was not held back by any school board. Every school board has received their full subsidy. And for further elucidation, the Deputy Prime Minister, myself, we met with now all the school boards besides the Christian Hillside. Last week we met, I met with the CBA, and we've also understood that a few already have paid the vacation allowance. In regards to the Game Control Board, how far are we? Minister announced the last government has an ongoing agreement with casinos and lotteries. And MP also asked for the amounts. We are currently in the process of making these agreements. The main fact is that the letters of protest from the casinos were answered. So this was a long-standing issue over the last few years where invoices would be sent to casinos. They would protest, and they were not given answers and so forth, and they seemingly did not pay. So we started the process of actually communicating, looking for the protest letters, communicating the issues, and answering the questions. And the casinos were then informed about their outstanding balance, which must be repaid in the next 12 months. The following answer. Under the C4 project MP in the country package, which is related to the revamping of the tax office, we are busy executing the quick wins, of which one of them is to clean up the databases of the tax office. After this, we start with the next step, which will probably lead to an increase. Currently cleaning up the database by the tax office, so the effects of the compliance will be at the later stage of the project. MP's next question was in regards to the 71 vacancies for the year 2022, and how many of these were filled. In 2021, 8 vacancies have been filled. In 2022, another 4 were filled at the tax department. The next question was in regards to the vacation allowance to be paid, a vacation days used. Yes, a different combination of measures is used to cover the 12.5%, and that new set of measures, vacation pay was not used, will be used vacation days. So we reduce all vacation days to 15 days. The following questions were in regards to the Ministry of ECYS, and we did not receive a full clarity on these, which would be, what is the status of the reorganization of the school bus transportation, the legislation for the school bus transportation, and the legislation for the tertiary education and the school bus monitoring. We've not received these MP as yet, so hopefully before the end of this meeting. I now move on to your next question, which was related to the VSR budget. Under the project and activities, a total of 9 million was scrapped. From the 9 million that was scrapped, 8.4 million was intended for shock-resistant activities pertaining to COVID-19 or for any public health emergency of international concerns. Considering COVID was in an endemic phase, it was decided to cut in that area. The MP asked to receive an overview of the costs of the pandemic and what items material overview from VSR. And it's stated here to see the document submitted to Parliament, the COVID-19 2020-2022. I'm assuming the document was already submitted to Parliament. Yes. Following question, under the Economic Affairs Diversification Study, National Economic Plan, Public Transportation Plan, etc. However, the MP stated that it was dropped from the country package. The country package contains most of the objectives for St. Martin. However, next to the country package, priorities exist as stated in the National Development Vision. This set of priorities are now incorporated in what we call a one umbrella plan. Following question, the tourism marketing budget was cut by 42%. The budget was adjusted based on the realized figures up until August 2022. So we have a budget, we see the amount of advices that are coming in and so forth, and we measure if they are realistically being able to be executed. And if not, they are then pushed on to the following year. The next question was in regards to 140,000 guilders for SMEs. And a question regarding the budget meant for Carnival. Did this work? Did something happen to it? The budget for the SME development went into a partnership agreement with the A&A Accounting for the development of SME Entrepreneurship Development Program. A little over 50 persons are enrolled in the one-year program. Additionally, others who applied but did not qualify for the one-year program will be helped through shorter targeted training programs. In regards to Carnival, and I'll answer, because we had a question for Carnival by MP Sarah Scott Williams, MP Rolanda Bryson, MP Christophe Emmanuel, and MP Grisha Helga Martin. So we made us answer those with the question and answer from MP Sarah Williams. The government, as in the question posed by MP Bryson and the statement that he made, this government did not start the process to investigate Carnival. The process started by a previous government, but we did continue that process when it came to the auditing of the Carnival. In addition to that, with some of the public outcry that we have heard and some of the complaints that officially came to government through Parliament, we started a process of asking a third party to do an investigation, and that investigation is basically done, and the government is planning to have a presentation done for Parliament on this investigation and the results of this investigation. In this investigation dealt with accountability and transparency within Carnival, the foundation, highlighting some topics of the existence, going as far as back as why and how Carnival started, the different entities, the different persons, and where we are today. The other question was, will Carnival be funded? Yes, Carnival will be funded, but again, the government is now going through a strategy for how we would like this Carnival managed for next year. Some of the issues that came up in the investigation was the lack of the procedural transparency, and unfair and imbalanced contractual practices, for example, with boot allocations, limited accountability and insight into the financial position of Carnival, lack of incorporation of cultural aspects, safety and security of residents and visitors, lack of transparency in the sales and distribution of Carnival passes. In the recommendation also, it was also recommended not to tender Carnival for next year, seeing how close it is. So that was also part of the recommendations, not to tender Carnival, as that was also one of the questions previously posed. As I mentioned in my first statement regarding Carnival, the government is prepared to have a presentation specifically on this topic, seeing that the investigation is done, and I'll be asking the government to, I guess, have this meeting scheduled as early as possible, since that it seems like an important topic. We had, I think, 4 MPs ask the same question in regards to Carnival, so we will be coming to Parliament to present the results of the investigation. Continuing the questions from MP Sarah Westcott-Williams, MP said, you would recall that a few months ago into office, the men just came out swinging on immigration, zero tolerance. And MP asked about what we learned about this policy and what would we like to know exactly about this policy. Answer, with the joint controls that were conducted in the first quarter of 2022, the 3 ministries came together across a number of tenured non-national employees working at various establishments without the required documentation, residence, and work permit. The government-appointed members, task force members, were given a task assignment by the Ministers of Justice, VSA, and TIAT to establish a pilot project to assist the business community and regulate the immigration status of their tenured foreign employees. Based on the feedback from business owners, one of the reasons they have chosen not to apply for their non-national employees is the cumbersome and time-consuming process it takes to receive the required documentation. The minister's goal is to have a 30-day window from the time of submission of an application to the pickup of residence permit in order to combat the cumbersome and time-consuming process. The processes and procedures will remain the same, and as such, no new policy has been implemented or created. All legislation will also be adhered to. The report of the task force members can be sent to the members of Parliament if they would like to peruse. The next question to the Ministry of Justice by MP Sarah Westcott-Williams was in regards to UNOPS the relationship and picking up of the slack in relation to them. The answer from the ministry: on July 20, 2022, a letter was sent to the State Secretary, Ms. Van Huffelen, expressing Minister Richardson's concerns of the reports of alleged fraud and corruption within the UNOPS organization. In light of these reports, the negotiations with UNOPS were temporarily suspended to give us time to reassess the positions and await the internal investigations by the United Nations. Since Minister Richardson's letter dated July 20th, important actions have been taken by UNOPS to address the shared concerns and questions that existed. On August 10th, 2022, a meeting was held between St. Martin, the Netherlands, and UNOPS, where UNOPS gave a presentation elucidating the events that had taken place. In addition to that, a draft information note was drawn up and shared by UNOPS following the consultation, which provided necessary clarification. In response to the developments with UNOPS, the Minister of Foreign Trade and Development Corporation increased its caution and applied 3 additional conditions whereby: 1, the political, budgetary, and substantive urgency of each project will be weighed before entering into projects with UNOPS. The internal processes for approval will be strengthened. And 3, additional safeguards must be applied at project level to mitigate risk. In the various official discussions that followed after the 10th of August with UNOPS, St. Martin, and the Netherlands, emphasized the importance of including these additional financial safeguards in the agreements with the UNOPS, such as including the possibility of an external audit, consensus on the spending of aid in mitigating potential financial risks in the implementation of the project. The positive discussions on a technical level with UNOPS about the safeguards, as well as the internal measures taken by the entire UNOPS organization in response to reports about the organization earlier this year, gave the Minister sufficient reason to support the proposal by the State Secretary to jointly continue the preparations for the project with UNOPS for the construction of a new prison for St. Martin, and to sign an agreement with UNOPS within short. The letter from the State Secretary querying St. Martin's position and the Minister's response letter to that query have been shared with the members of Parliament already. Now move on to the next question. The matter of the Coast Guard and the reduction of their subsidy. Explain what is happening, the MP asks. The financial contribution was brought in line with the realized figures, which was budgeted in the prior years. The next question, under the Rummy 6.5 million guilders in long lease, how much is actually collected for 2021? In 2021, we collected 5.9 million guilders. What is the 2022 mutations in long lease, commercial and residential? The mutations 2022 is a direct impact of the implementation of a task force that is focused, where its focus is collection efforts on commercial properties. The next answer, the contribution of 2 initiatives in 2022 are financed up to an amount of 8.5 million guilders. Next to that, the Netherlands financed liquidity support of 24 million guilders. Next question by the MP was related to CAPEX and what is done to effectuate the capital investments. As explained in my presentation, the original CAPEX was reduced from 94 to 42 million guilders. The 94 included investments that did not have a sound plan for the investments. The investments mentioned in the CAPEX break down on pages 67, 68, 69 of the Getallen book, and on page 68 of the Toelichting book of the budget amendment. All are backed up by the plan. We consider the shift in the influence of the supervisory board body on political issues to be an undesirable development. The last question by MP Sarah Scott Williams was in regards to the Executive Protection Unit on the subsidy list, and we did not receive an answer for that as yet. Mr. Chairman, I now move on to the questions by MP Grisha Hannigan Martin. The first question was in regards to CFT on the Budget Amendment 2022. The CFT advises majorly in the context of the RFT, and that means primarily by if we comply with the law. However, over time, safety has also been placed in roles with a political connotation by the EDAMED. An example of this is that the safety must give its opinion on the volume of liquidity assistance. However, this is a political issue and not a compliance issue. The next question was in regards to, in layman's terms, explain the amendment budget related to Carnival and what will it mean for Carnival in coming years. Carnival subsidy is on the 2023 budget of STB, and I also commented on the Carnival situation in my previous answer. Regarding the integrity chamber, was the budget for this institution amended? If so, how? And if not, why not? And that was in regards to budget 2023, actually. Options are being explored to facilitate an increase in the integrity chamber in the budget 2023. The MP asks, what was the actual debt situation in 10-10-10? The annual account of 2011 shows an amount of 302 million guilders. This was mentioned to be the total of the bond loans. No write-off took place on these loans. Next question and answer. How has it been possible that under the LFTA, CFTA, 12 years later, St. Martin has almost a 1 billion guilders debt? The bond loans, when matured, were not paid back, but were refinanced. In the draft annuals of 2021, the debt has increased to 914.8 million guilders, mainly because of Irma liquidities, which was 164 million guilders, and the COVID liquidity support, which was 292 million guilders. The LFTA limits the loan ceiling by the interest norm, but that norm is not jeopardized because of the zero interest loans. Hence, the CFT could not object to these loans. The next answer. What are the projections for this debt in coming 5 years, and how does the minister intend to deal with it? We're in the process of developing a multi-annual sustainable financial plan for St. Martin. This plan will be compiled in discussion with the Netherlands and needs to be available by October 2023. Converting loans to grants will be part of the negotiations with the Netherlands. Question 7 and 8 MP, I put them together to give one answer. The questions related to the LFTA, the CFT, and if they actually work well together, and if the minister believes the LFTA, CFT do not work, how does he explain, how do I explain the debt of 944 million guilders? The LFTA is set up as a temporary law on the basis of which supervision is exercised by the Council of Ministers of the Kingdom, while the CFT has a signaling advisory role in this regard. Based on the evaluations as mentioned in Article 33 of the LFTA, the Council of Ministers of the Kingdom decides what extent the supervision can be wholly or partially terminated. The last evaluation of the CFT was executed by the Evaluation Committee of 2021, Article 33 Kingdom Act Financial Supervision, Curaçao and St. Martin, which will be provided to Parliament and which comments I support. As a matter of the fact of the almost 1 billion guilders in debt, yes, this is a burden for St. Martin, and this must be made bearable with aforementioned sustainable financial planning. The MP also mentioned a letter that the Ministry of Finance or the Minister did not respond to us yet, and we also want to clarify that situation. To you, Mr. Chairman, yes, MP, we are working on the answers to that question, to the questions posed by that letter. And for clarity's sake, we did have a meeting, as you mentioned, based on your request to meet with an entity in regards to possible refinancing of all of the Dutch loans, all the basically the liquidity support, or potentially all the Dutch loans. This request, I was also advised this request is not a Parliament's request, but was also a request by the Chair of Parliament. And we still, yes, entertain it because we didn't see any issue with entertaining a conversation about possible refinancing of loans. In this meeting that we had, it was stated that there's a possible entity that's willing to refinance the loans. We had these discussions in the meetings. It was also advised to me that we do not want to take the path of it not being a request of Parliament to have any discussions or sign any MOUs with this entity. It was discussed with this entity. Possibly, the entity had requested for us to sign an MOU with them to be able to go into further discussions, which we disagreed. In addition to that, the entity also, which we thought was a bit weird, the entity also requested or suggested that we get a guarantee by the Netherlands to be able to fund this this loan. So basically, this entity would then basically take over our loans from the Netherlands, but they wanted a guarantee by the Netherlands to back this loan. Yes, so those answers are being worked on, but for clarity's sake, that was the process or the steps discussed. Going on to questions from MP Rolanda Bryson. During the recent visit from CFT, MP asked, do we feel or hear if Aruba and Curacao and St. Martin has a backlog? Or I guess the MP was basically asking if the ministry feels that we get acknowledgement for the work that we put in regards to the financial statements. Yes, in regards to the financial statements specifically, we must say that the CFT did give their compliments and about the performance of the government in regards to financial statements and annual accounts. The next question was in regards to the CFT taking inflation into account in the budget. The inflation estimated of the budget 2022 MP is 2%. The increase of last quarter was not considered and will be managed by reducing expenditure. The question was, the third question was regards again to basically having compliments by the CFT in terms of do they ever say good job being done and so forth. As I mentioned before, in regards to annual accounts, this was the case. The MP asks, how did the higher councils make use of the extra funding? We don't know exactly how they made use of the extra funding, but the higher councils did have an increased vacation monies paid in 2022. In regards to the most recent advice CFT makes, the fifth question for MP, most recent advice CFT makes reference to the certain statistics like IMF and do not agree with the effects of the IMF. Who is the expert in inflation calculations? How do you reconcile these differences into opinions? Maybe we can let IMF give a second opinion on our budgeting processes. In regards to the IMF recommendations, we disagree with the opinion of CFT that the 2023 budget can be balanced exactly because of the projections of the IMF and our own central bank. This difference of opinion must be settled now since the State Council has ratified this objective. Next question was in regards to the co-op marketing for Sunwing, Southwest, etc., and if those 3 airlines are at risk. The Sunwing co-op marketing campaign is being finalized to support the 2022 airline co-op campaign. Southwest is not at risk as the airline is in recovery mode as.
Minister, please, hold a minute, please.
Oh, break time.
I adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes. time it is 12:25. We do not have a quorum, and we will adjourn the meeting until 1:30. We'll incorporate a lunch break. Meeting adjourned until 1:30.